Jeff Conroy with me. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining me on my podcast. I had you in my video project and then brought you onto the official Keeping Tabs podcast. So thank you so very much.
I feel like veteran, Tab. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk to Jeff so I can let him give a little background. So if you don't know who Jeff is or what he does, just tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing now and your background, and then we'll get started in some fun questions.
Well, for 30 years, I was in the nonprofit world. I spent 16 years working for the Boy Scouts of America. I was the director of the local United Way in Coeur d'Alene. Most recently, I was the director of St. Vincent de Paul in North Idaho, and am now doing some coaching and consulting with Conroy Leadership Consulting, and really focus on working with nonprofits. So I still get to play in the nonprofit world, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so the what we really want to talk about today was especially your work with like staff training and boards, and your experience with that and what you're doing. And I guess the big question is the importance of doing this.
Sure. Like you and I were talking, we'll call it the green room, when before we came on, I was talking about, we were talking about the COVID crisis going on and nonprofits struggling. And I said, this is why I really stress nonprofits have excellent structure and organization, and that way they were able to handle a crisis like this. And you also have to have a very, very strong board. So when I'm working with nonprofits now, I really talk about making sure that you have a strong board, a committed board, a knowledgeable board, a working board, and have a decent succession plan in place. And what does that look like? Do you have job descriptions? Board members need to have job descriptions. They need to know what's expected of them. And they each need to have an important role. People want to join boards to make a difference, not to fill a seat.
Oh,
so that's
true.
So
yeah, so that's what I am, I guess, because working with the Centennial Trail, I'm very fortunate to work with such a great board, and I have a very active board. But you bring up the thing is like, job descriptions, like what is everybody's, role in this? And I think that could be even more of a success to everyone knowing what to do. I want to know what I'm supposed to do as, an employee.
right.
So that's such a great point is to know your role.
Well, how do you know you're successful if you don't know what your role is?
Yeah, what's the outcome? Like, how do you know that you were successful?
Yeah, one of the things I really push with nonprofits is to create committees that are important to them: a finance committee, a fundraising committee, a marketing committee, and then recruit board members to sit on those committees. So you have experts in the field sitting around the table at those committees. People sitting around the marketing committee table are not all board members. Just a couple of them are, but they are leading that group. And then when they go back to the board meeting, your board meeting then becomes a report meeting, and they can report on what the work is being done within that committee. That really makes a nonprofit stronger, and you have everybody working in their expert field supporting your organization.
So what is one, like if there's one or two nuggets that you should know as a nonprofit leader or nonprofit or a board, what are something like two things that your board should do to be successful?
For the board to be successful, be involved and be trained, understand what your nonprofit does, and be a contributing member. That's one thing. The second thing would be to get involved with your nonprofit. Participate with your times, talents, or treasures. Participate with that nonprofit. They need to benefit from you and your sphere of friends. Everyone's got a sphere. So it's really important that as a board member, you are promoting your nonprofit as an ambassador within the community and within your friends. So it's really important for a board member to do that.
And I think go right back to that, filling a seat. Like some people just want it on their resume. Hey, I sit on these boards, and we've all dealt with that. And we've all dealt with those hard questions or hard conversations of like, all right, I think it's time for you to move on because it's not a right fit for either person.
Most definitely, and I work with a lot of nonprofits who have people that don't even show up, but they hold a seat. So I say, well, how many meetings can they miss? Well, we really don't have anything in writing. You gotta. That's where structure and organization comes in place. What's a term limit? Is it 3 years? I push 3 years. The reason I push 3 years is because when a board member comes on, they are living with what they got. The second year, they are get to implement their plan. The third year, they get to reap the benefits of their plan. A lot of nonprofits, it's a 1 year term, and to me, that's you're barely getting started, man.
Yeah, you just get excited. I mean, you just get into it, and then you start to learn. And the next year, you have the new fundraisers and the new things. You're like, all right, I had the last year the experience. Like, let's start really digging in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I work for a board, and there's only one of me. I'm the only staff, so I'm not technically the person or the group you would come into for staff training. But like bigger organizations, nonprofits, or even other organizations. So what do you do when you come in and do a staff training? I know there's probably tons of levels to this, but kind of what do you do when you dive into a whole staff training?
To a whole staff training, and what's interesting is I've worked for different levels of different sizes of nonprofits. When I worked for the Boy Scouts, I had a staff of 27. When I worked for the United Way, it was me and a part-timer. when I was at Vinny's, I had 103 employees. So the first thing I try to do is try to create a common ground, a common understanding, a common language. That way they understand where I am coming from as a leader with my vision and the goals that I want to focus on, but we're all using the same language and the same understanding. Is it 100% buy-in? No, but I'll say it's about 90% buy-in. Everyone, most vast majority understands what I'm trying to do. But you want to make sure they understand the organization. That starts from the onboarding process. When a new employee comes on, you got to have an onboarding paperwork. They've got to understand what their job description is. They've got to understand the flow. They got to know where the coffee pot is and where the restroom is. They've got to understand their job, and you try and partner them with a mentor. So that's where the training starts. Then when you start having structured training for the staff, that's where your foundation, your lingo, your acronyms all come into place. Anything above and beyond that, to me, is gravy. It's constant developing, bringing in people from the outside in to train your staff on topics. Right now, I see a lot of flyers on COVID. I see a lot of HR directors promoting COVID within their staff, not promoting COVID, but promoting the prevention of COVID with their staff.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, I got it.
But that's the hot topic right now, and bringing teams of people in to do COVID prevention training. There is stress. I see a lot of stress training going on, how to relieve stress within the workplace, that type of stuff. But you got to have that foundation, that common ground, that understanding of where you're coming from and where you want to take the organization. Once that initial one for me is done, we do trainings on a monthly basis. But every year we kind of have our own staff business meeting where I roll out the budget, and I showed all 103 Vinny staff the budget repeatedly on that day, and tried to explain to them the budget and explain to them a vision. So you're still creating that common ground. You're still creating that vision that everyone can see, and you answer any and all questions that people may have. So training is not a one-time event. It's not a destination. It's a process. It's ongoing.
Oh yeah, it's not a band-aid. It's not like, okay, we've had some there's always, you hit this point where it's not getting along. You can just feel the difference. And it's not like, okay, we brought someone in, we got this. It's like you said, it's ongoing. It's checking in. It's making sure you're doing your homework, making sure that, especially I think the leaders within companies, I think it's most important for them because they can go right back into their old ways.
You betcha they can. And that's why it's important for a leader to have, I used to call my directors my lieutenants, and I would have a weekly meeting with the lieutenants and just discuss what was going on with their team. The other 4 days of the week, I would walk around and talk with their team, but I would talk to them directly and make sure that we're still on the same path.
And do you
because
see a
I've been on paths by myself.
oh yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah. And do you see a big success with the companies that you've worked with that, are you noticing a big change in these guys after you come in and do all this?
There's quite a few Buddhist aha moments. Especially when I do board retreats and I bring up the idea of the committees, because a lot of nonprofits, and let's be honest here, in our area, 95% of the nonprofits are small.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few really big nonprofits. And so the smaller nonprofits are looking for people on their board or to help them that basically, if they can fog a mirror or have a pulse, we want them.
Yeah.
But you want to recruit your board with purpose, and you want to recruit your committees with purpose. And that's when I bring up the committee idea of, look, for a finance committee, you want CPA, CFOs, and bankers, people who understand your financials. Because a vast majority of your board members could care less about your finances. They can't read the ledger. They can't read the P&L. They can't do that. So you need CPAs, CFOs, and bankers to do that, to be in a committee once a month, to go over your financials, to be the experts, and come back to the board and say, we approve, or we've got issues. It's really important to do that. And when I explain that to a really small nonprofit, they're like, wow, we never thought of that. And I said, you only need to have the treasurer and one other be on your finance committee. Everyone else is just committee members who are increasing your sphere of influence. And it's kind of like that. I never thought of that. I'm working with a nonprofit down in the Moscow Pullman area that we're working on this committee thing, and almost every time it's like, okay, well, that's cool. All right, I get that. Oh, I know so and so, and I know so and so, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, everybody knows people, but recruit them with purpose. Don't. And then if a finance person has to leave your committee or your treasurer times out, go find another finance person. You just don't have to take anybody. You need someone in the CPA, CFO, and banker world.
Oh yeah, completely. I have a great treasure on this Centennial, and he like dumbs it down for all of us. Like he really like gives us the key numbers so we don't have to look all of that. But he's, those people are geek with numbers and they're great with it and they love it. And that's why they do it, is because they get to give their time and things and their talent and what they're really good at. Speaking
and
of,
they all look at your financials differently.
oh yeah,
I've had CPAs sit on my finance committee with a ruler going line by line.
Yep, I have one of those guys too. Speaking of budgets, it is tough for nonprofits right now. We're all a little scared. It's just changed, and I think you and I started to talk in the green room a little bit about COVID hit and nonprofit. We're going to see some nonprofits, I think, kind of disappear because of this. Let's talk a little bit about being prepared for moments like this. I mean, we didn't expect this, but there's times when the economy crashes. There's times like this. So what do you mean by being prepared for, I guess, the worst?
Yeah, and for smaller nonprofits, it's really hard because with like all nonprofits, there's a finite amount of money. It's just how experienced are you in understanding the finances? A lot of times people start nonprofits, it's a passion project. I mean,
yeah,
I can think of 3 or 4 right now off the top of my head that they were started because of passion projects, not because they were financial geniuses. So that's another reason to get a really good finance committee of CPA, CFOs, and bankers. But over a period of time, I had a gentleman that I worked with. He was my executive director, and I learned so much finance from him. He called it the coffee can mentality. He would try and stash money in coffee cans for rainy day. It's like a rainy day fund. Mm-hmm. And it would be there in case of crisis. Now, let's be honest, the COVID thing that's going on right now, no one could have ever prepared or predicted it. It's just those who are more prepared than others right now. Unfortunately, bigger nonprofits have more funding sources. They have federal funding, they have grants and endowments, and they have yearly giving. Really small nonprofits, a lot of it is just annual giving, very few grants, no federal funding. It's just a matter of how you situate your finances for a rainy day. You should always prepare for a rainy day. We didn't predict the recession in 2008, and we went through that when I was at Vinny's, and because of a great finance committee and a great finance director, we were able to get through it. But this is pretty brutal.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm getting very creative on how we raise money for the North Idaho Centennial Trail. I am lucky to have some great relationships with other nonprofit leaders or director of operations, or anybody that does all the donations and gift officers and those things. Is the creativity you have to have at this time too, is because we can't do that in-person stuff like we used to.
No, and Zoom's been a godsend.
Yeah.
I've watched more online virtual fundraisers and auctions. I think it's brilliant. It's genius.
And like, what is your, I mean, I have an idea, but do you think this is going, I mean, say things get back to normal-ish. Are we still going to stay with this, not like this giving the way that they are, because can be a little bit easier. I mean, we're doing Ales for a Trail in a Bag, whole different concept. The time and energy that I'm putting into it is a lot. I mean, I've had to plan it 4 times, but the energy and time going into it this time, I'm like, gosh, this is a lot easier than like, getting all the vendors there and doing all the picking up kegs, you know what I mean? So do you think it's going to be a shift and change when things get back to like somewhat normal?
I think it's another tool for the nonprofit tool belt. I think it's another way to raise money. You have telefunds, you have auctions, you have golf tournaments, you have dinners, you have all sorts of events. Now you have virtual. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen down the road. I don't think nonprofits are going to make, I don't know for sure, but from what I'm hearing, the amount of money they're making on nonprofits is not as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about being a presence and still trying than anything else right now. But I think it'll be another fundraiser in the fundraising arsenal.
Yeah, and I think it'll be great for little nonprofits too, when they can't get, like we can't have those the huge auctions like the Boys and Girls Club or Children's
Right.
Village. And so it makes it right there on your screen. It doesn't take as much energy because you have a small staff. So
Right.
I think it's going to be fun, and I've just seen creativity nonstop, and I think it's just awesome.
Exactly. I was looking at, you mentioned Children's Village. I was looking at Children's Village this morning. The way they have it presented, it's a graphic of a one page, and it's got lots of colors and lots of pictures, and people are attracted to that. I went through every one of them. I mean, even I'm attracted to it, and I know what they're doing. So I think it's exciting. It's very creative. It gives nonprofits a chance to shine a little bit more.
And especially right now, like the Children's Village is a great example of a nonprofit, or Vinny's, that we need right now. Like we can't be one of those nonprofits like, oh, they'll be fine for a little bit. No, it's one of those, especially right now, people are homeless, people are not making money. Like we need this. They need the funding.
Yeah. And that's the other part, is that there's nonprofits that are essential, that are badly, badly, badly needed. They are survival nonprofits. I'm working with the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater right now, and we're talking about fundraising, and it's hard because they don't see it as, SIDS or CASA. I mean, those are amazing nonprofits. So how do we make ourselves relevant?
Exactly. All right, let's have a couple fun questions. What is one life lesson you have learned the hard way?
Listen to people and get involvement from everybody. When I first started at Vinny's and started working on the help center, I was so excited about it. Me and my volunteer, John Bruning, were running 100 miles an hour, and we were so excited. And we'd go back to the staff meetings, and they'd look at us with glazed looks. And that's when I realized, people who aren't leading people are on a long, lonely walk by themselves. And I was on a long, lonely walk by myself.
That's really good. If you could paint your house any color, like everything in your house would be one color, what would it be?
Inside and out?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with a light tan.
Yep, that's an easy one. I was like thinking gray or white, but white's a lot. Like you think a lot of white in your house would be,
I need to have a little tint.
yeah, or everything would just be dirty.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Favorite restaurant in Coeur d'Alene?
Oh, I've been a big time fan of Toro Vejo forever. I was sad to see Junior leave, but he's opened up his new place. I've gone there as well, Junior's. So yeah, probably Toro Vejo.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Who is your
Talk
biggest
about obscure.
who's your biggest inspiration and why?
Biggest inspiration. I'm a big believer that you need to have many, many mentors in your life, and I've been blessed. My wife, 32 years, she's hung with me. She's been my biggest fan, my biggest push, my biggest inspiration, my biggest advocate for 32 years. So I'm going to stick with her. Of course, my parents, they're both gone, but they served. They owned restaurants, and my mom started out as a social worker, so I still kind of do what she did. So yeah,
Oh,
those are probably the big ones.
I love that. Love that. So thank you so much, Jeff, for doing this. I want you to leave us with a piece of advice to a nonprofit out there, especially. Maybe they're struggling or maybe they're just lost right now. Give us a little piece of advice on something they can do to better things right now.
For a nonprofit that's struggling right now, I would really encourage you to talk to somebody. You cannot run a nonprofit in a vacuum. Learn to find a mentor, talk, collaborate, go out for coffee, let your hair down, and just vent away, because these are tough times right now, and you really do need to talk to someone. My wife, one of my favorite sayings is, contrary to my wife's opinion, I don't know it all, but I'll surround myself with people who do, and take
Oh,
that mantra.
I know. I love that because that's why I do the same thing. I'm like, I don't know anything, but that's why I reach out to people like yourself or other nonprofit leaders in this community, because I wouldn't know half the things. And obviously my board I can't give them enough credit. But all right. So say like me or someone out there is looking to hire you or use you. How can they go about this?
Just email me at jeff@conroyleadershipconsulting.com, and I'm an email away, and I respond quickly.
Yes, you do. You're great at it. You can message him on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. He is like, I'm very impressed with your presence on social media.
Not bad for an old guy, huh?
I'm very impressed. All right. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you for inviting me, my friend. It's good to see you.
Thanks for listening to Keeping Tabs. I'm Tabitha Crock, and every Monday I release a podcast about different community members here in North Idaho. And then we end the weeks on Fridays with a podcast about the things I'm passionate about: outdoors, adventures, sports, the van life, and even current events. So if you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes. Thank you again. Now go be kind and do something great.